Welcome back. Once again, we're continuing our discussion looking at gangs, part 3. Joining me again is Marvin Blades. He's with Tulsa Public Schools Campus Police. I want to say Tulsa Police Department because you are a retired police officer of 31 years. Let's jump in. Time's never my friend. Before we start this second segment in terms of looking at what some of these numbers and things mean in letters and go through that again for people that didn't see another show, the age of outlaw motorcycle gangs, is it a little bit different than what we normally see as the street gangs?
Definitely. When we start talking about motorcycle gangs, probably the average is going to be upper 30s, early 40s, and older. You're not going to see teenagers. You won't see anybody in their early 20s in motorcycle gangs.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. They're looking for somebody a little more mature and a little more actually committed to what they're actually doing.
Okay, so if we look at youth and school systems, we really don't have to worry about the outlaw motorcycle gang component.
Yes, that's correct.
But we can be aware of it in terms of the parents or the environment, that type of thing.
That's true.
Okay, let's look at some of the significance of these letters and numbers that you have up here. Let's start with, I want to start with 420. What is 420 meaning?
420. What it suggests is the month of April, 4th month, and 20 is the 20th day. For the hate groups, Klan, skinheads, white Aryan resistance, hammerhead skins, that's significant because it means April 20th, Hitler's birthday. Hitler was born on April 20th. All the hate groups, including the Klan, celebrate his birthday.
Okay, so around that April the 20th, there's a lot of activity that they'll have going on the internet or
you see a lot
other
on
kinds of things.
Yes. Internet, any areas where you see those groups exist, you'll see activity. Also, you'll see the number 419, the Oklahoma City bombing. Timothy McVeigh was a member of some of these groups. Nichols was also a member. We like to mention the militia groups. A lot of times there's a connection between the militia groups and the hate groups. So 419, 420, remember the Branch Davidians, anything that's anti-government or anti-black, anti-Jewish, whatever, will fall into these particular groups.
Now, with this, would we see this like on on clothing, or just that they would talk about it, or the activity? I mean, how could we know that this is associated, the person's associating with this?
Well, on some of our investigation, we've come across graffiti.
Okay.
There's graffiti where you will see those numbers. That number, you'll see the 88 and some of the other numbers that we'll get into. You'll actually see those on the side of buildings, side of fences, particularly around this time of year.
Okay, and that'll help you know the activity and the area that the people are in.
And generally, when you see that, you also see it generally accompanied by a swastika, what is called an iron cross, or every now and then you'll see what is called a rune. Again, one of the Celtic or Celtic crosses, and you'll see like these letters, WP for white pride. You'll generally see those in combination.
Okay, now what would be the significance, because you mentioned that before we came on camera, of the help me now, the KKK with a flag or something?
Oh, yes.
Or talk about that.
Well, KKK, their flag will actually have what is called an iron cross, or you have the cross like the Confederate flag, and in the midst of the cross or the flag, you'll see what is called a teardrop. It's shaped like a teardrop, but it'll be red, and what it signifies is the one drop rule. And for those who aren't familiar with that, for years in America, you have one drop black blood.
Right, you were black.
You're black. So they use that as a test to test your purity, your Aryan purity or your Caucasian purity. And if you have one drop, then you don't qualify for this particular group.
So one drop of any other blood, they're
Outside
kind
of
of using it in the other way too. One
Yes.
drop of any other blood, you cannot at all be Aryan.
Be considered Aryan, yes.
Now, what are some of the things that they sort of help to prove that? I mean, you'd mentioned too about, and I want you to tell our viewers about, because I was talking about my cheeks, they just stay blush naturally. I don't put blush in. And you were saying, well, that's a test of this group. What is that about again?
Well, they actually have, there's two tests. One of the tests is called the pencil test. And the pencil test, basically what they'll do, they'll take a pencil, place it on the end of your nose, and if the bottom of the pen will make contact with your cheek without touching your lips, then that shows area impurity.
Okay.
If you touch your lip, then you fall into what they call groups outside of the white groups mud people.
All right.
They're considered mud people, and you fall into one of those groups, or you're Jewish. Jewish in their mind is somebody who came from Satan, and all the white groups are the pure groups, and they're really the original lost tribes of Israel. That's where they look at it. And they also have a religious group called the Christian Identity, which is the religious arm of all this insanity that they have.
Okay.
And they actually practice that extreme left-leaning religion that includes everybody except African Americans, Jews, Hispanics. As long as you're white, then you fall into those groups.
Okay. Now, what's the cheek test?
Well, it's called, there's a documentary called Blood in the Face.
Okay.
And basically, if you can blush, you know, if you can actually show redness in the cheeks or whatever, then you can also fall into that. And they use that as one of their tests called blood in the face, blood in the cheeks. There's also a book that goes along with a documentary called Blood in the Face. And years ago, I know it used to be available. I don't know if it still is.
Okay.
But it basically goes into detail about how they come up with this, what I call this insanity.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about some of these other numbers, like 88.
88 is significant because you'll generally see that with the 420.
Okay.
The eighth letter of the alphabet is H. And when you see them in combination like that, it means Hail Hitler. You'll see the hand goes up for Hail Hitler.
Okay. Now when you see the like the RIP, for many of us, RIP is indicating death, maybe, you know, when we look at that, but does it have another significance? Because you have it under the B, the RIP, the RMG.
It does. Like I said, the last time we got together, ignore the colors. Generally, when you see RIP, particularly if it's connected with gangs, RIP is one of our blood sets called the RIP Boys. Years ago, we had a group, a family actually come to Tulsa from California, and I won't mention their names, but they were Crips. A lot of our little local guys wanted to get involved with them. They were rejected. So what they did, they dropped a C from Crips and formed the RIP Boys.
Oh, okay.
So one of our first original Tulsa originating street gangs was called RIP Boys, and it was a blood set.
Okay, and so those are blood sets. Now the H, is that the Hoover set?
That's correct.
See how much I remember. And then these are the sort of the different types. The 107, it's indicating like the streets, like the 63rd and the 51st.
Well, that's true except for the 107.
Okay.
Actually, Hoover is a street in California. And 107, 107th and Hoover, is two streets that intersect, and that's where the 107 Hoovers come from.
Okay.
We have a Oklahoma-California connection. So over the years, our street gangs evolved into claiming streets. So when we see 63rd or 63rd Street or 6 and a 3, that means 63rd Street or 63rd Street.
Okay.
The 5-1s is 51st, 39 is the Trey 9s, and when they fall under this banner or this letter, all of them are what are called Hoover sets.
Okay. Well, we're going to take another quick break and come back and focus on clothing. Okay? Please stay with us. We'll be right back.